Welcome to the Vision Profiles podcast. Join us, two dedicated Apple Vision Pro users, as we dive into everything from hardware and software to apps and the latest updates in the world of Apple Vision Pro. I'm Marty Gensius, a faculty member at Kent State University, podcaster, and an avid Apple product fan.
I'm Eric Bolden. I work in IT, but my interest is in finding interesting ways to share content, currently photography of plants and birds and panoramic sequences.
All right, today's episode, we're going to cover Vision Pro news and share some great apps. So actually, there's a couple of fun ones at the end I think we're both going to talk about. Eric's found a couple, and I found one that I've just kind of recently fell in love with. As soon as the show's over, I'm going to go back to it and follow the narrative on it. But what do we have? Not a lot in terms of news this week. So let's just go ahead and start and say, I don't know, was it more than a week ago or was it last week that they actually did another beta release for developers? It was VisionOS 2.3.2 developer beta. And you're not doing developer betas anymore. You're not doing developer betas anymore.
No, everything is working so well right now. I'm just staying on the nice, easy to use, no surprises. And I'm testing a game, so if I have a beta with a beta, that's too many variables.
Okay, so yeah, because I think you mentioned that there was a game where you applied to the developer to be able to test the game, and I don't know if you can release that information publicly.
I have a whole section where I'm going to talk about it.
Oh, okay, good. All right. Well, we'll find out when the attorneys contact us. Actually, there's a couple of things, and I mentioned this on In Touch with iOS with Dave Ginsburg. We recorded on Thursday night, and he always has a section on Vision Pro. And so we looked at the beta. There's a problem with the iOS apps in VisionOS simulator. So it occurs when people are testing things through the simulator. And basically what they're saying is, don't use the simulator, just use regular hardware. And I've heard this before from developers. It's one of the complaints that developers have, that the simulator really is they really would like one that's more functional, instead of always having to switch in and out of the hardware to be able to use the hardware. Other issue was with HealthKit, and when a user previously granted permission for HealthKit for a data type, the app might fail to remember the authorization, forcing users to grant, access repeatedly. That apparently has been fixed with that bug. So the two walkaways from this is developers should always use the hardware for now, I guess, until they fix the simulator. And HealthKit's bug is fixed, so people can test it and not have to worry about repeated logins in order to do it. So
HealthKit is healthy again.
Yeah, HealthKit is healthy again. It's workable for folks. Next bit of news, that we are kind of challenged by the fact that our gamer is really not here tonight. Daniel is the guy that knows the games. And this bit of news kind of came out last week. It's been 12 days or more since we've had a show, so we're kind of covering some of these. But this was everybody's excited about this. Everybody, particularly with gamers, that this opens up a whole new series of opportunities for games within the Apple Vision Pro. Daniel would be a perfect person to talk about this. He's not here tonight. However, again, on In Touch with iOS last week, we had Ben Rathig, and Ben Rathig is a big, big gamer and was really thrilled. He said this is game-changing for Apple Vision Pro, that now they will have all of the access to these different games that GeForce now will open up for them. Basically, the change in this is that GeForce now and Safari has worked to get GeForce to be able to run through the Safari browser. So that's the big change in it. And they've been announcing this, I guess, at CES. A lot of the news this week has been shadowed over by what's going on in CES. And as you know, Apple really stopped doing CES years ago. I saw an interesting article that was like, oh, Apple's not appearing at CES again this year, but it's still influencing CES because people didn't want to do anything with VR, AR. There was never much of an interest in it. Well, now there's a renewed interest. That's a bit of the talk of CES. And so Apple's kind of forcing other hardware and software developers who want to highlight something like this example with GeForce to be out there at CES in one way or another. So any thoughts on this?
If I did more gaming, yes. But I think that the quality of the screen on the Apple Vision Pro has really made people pay attention to it for editing and kind of double checking development of 3D movies. I think that works for games too. So I expect it to be used more and more.
Okay. We need to move to the GurRumors section of our show. Maybe my favorite part of the section of the show. And it's really tough when mom and dad fight. And by that, I'm saying Mark Gurman and Chi-Kuo. Both have different predictions of where the headset will go in the next year or not go in the next year. And so, what is it? Are you on Team Gurman or Team Kuo with this? Gurman says Vision Pro 2 won't release in 2025. However, Kuo in previous postings had said, oh yeah, they're going to do a Vision Pro 2 and they're going to push out the cheaper headset to 2027. Now, Gurman's saying, no, they're not going to do a Vision Pro 2, but their real focus, whenever that might be, it could be 2025 or, quote, later, is a cheaper headset. That's a big priority. I don't know. I hate it when mom and dad fight, but what's your thoughts on this?
The only thing I would say is there's two different devices at least. I mean, three ultimately if you count glasses, but there is at some point a replacement for the current Apple Vision Pro, and then there will be one that is less expensive, perhaps with some fewer number of capabilities. I have no idea when. I think by the end of this year, early next year. So say March 2026. Yeah. I mean, if they're not making more of the current headset and there's more interest in it, because it only went worldwide not that long ago. They're not gonna go for very many months where you can't find one before coming out with something. So timing on it is probably more related to is whatever chipset they want to use ready.
Yeah, I think I would be in the market for either some augmented glasses. So if they want to go that route, I'd be okay with that. I do have the Ray-Bans Meta and, good video, pretty good in terms of asking questions of it and getting responses. That's about it. There's nothing that comes up on a screen on my eyeballs, but it does shoot pretty good video. So it would be interesting to see what Apple would do with something like that form factor. I would go ahead and get that. And frankly, I'd be curious to see if they came out with a Vision Pro 2, what the advances would be in the device. They're talking about an M5 chip, but I would be compelled to buy a new Apple Vision Pro. If they gave me enough compelling reasons, I probably would. If it contained all of the components that is in the current Apple Vision in a smaller fashion or smaller form factor, plus the M5 chip, I might look at it and I might consider selling my current Vision Pro back or out into the environment just so I could have the latest models. So we'll see. Yeah, and Gary is saying agreed. Any drop in resolution is a deal breaker after getting used to these displays. So, with the Quest, and we'll get to Mark Zuckerberg later, but with the Quest, they caved this version of it that has a little bit less resolution to it. It's $100 cheaper. For a gaming device, I don't see fundamentally the difference between the $400 version, the Meta 3, or the 3S or whatever it's called, the $300 version. So I think it was a wise marketing move. But I think with the Apple product, people are not going to want to see loss of resolution in the screens, as Gary's suggestion. And Gurn is talking about lightweight plastic for the low cost. One would be welcome for me, but I don't know if I would want a lower screen res. So interesting to see what happens with that. Again, we'll post all of these articles in the show notes, so you can find them either in the video version or in the audio version. You can find the links to the articles that we're talking about.
So do you think a new version of the headset would have cellular modem in it?
That would be very cool. I mean, if they were going to do an M5 chip and a cellular modem in it,
because I could see that pushing it out further, because they have that new chip set that they're working on. They'd want to release that in something else first and make sure it all works. So it'll come out in a phone or something, work for a little while, then they could turn around and maybe they'll put one in the Mac, maybe they'll put one in the Apple Vision Pro headset.
They were talking about putting them in the M4 MacBook Airs. They're going to start to move them into the laptop category. And so if they did that coming spring with an M4 MacBook Air release that also had an option for a modem in it, that would start that rollout of that device. And it could very well wind up in a Vision Pro 2 with an M5 chip and a modem. That would be very cool. And then there's an article by Ben Lovejoy at 9to5Mac, everything that we can expect from a lower-priced Apple Vision headset in 2026. So I guess this would put him in Team Gurman if he's predicting a lower-priced headset coming out first. The non-Pro Apple Vision headset would launch in 2025, 2026, and 2027. And what do they talk about in here? He's just talking about the things they can and cannot. Eyesight will be dropped for sure. And lower resolution displays are also a certainty. So I guess this is not going to go. Gary is not going to rush out and get one, or Gurn is not going to rush out and get one, because apparently for this guy, the high resolutions screens are too much, too over the top. Less than aluminum, more plastic, possible iPhone tethering, price range $1,500 to $2,000. That's what his hope would be. So, this is from Ben Lovejoy, who, is a regular with 9to5Mac in terms of doing articles. And, some of the stuff he does, I disagree with. Some of the stuff he does, I agree with. So I don't know if you have anything on this.
I mean, it's reasonable to expect that there's going to be a lower priced unit or a lower weight unit. Maybe both. I still think it's too soon to tell which will come out first. I think originally it would have made sense to put the higher end one out first so that people get all the extra capabilities, and development would still kind of keep going, and then come out with the other one, because it's still taking time to do the movie development, the game development, everything else, and you need the higher end one for all of that. And then there will be enough media to then roll out some less expensive devices to have more people going after things. certainly could make sense that, some stuff just isn't ready and it comes out in the other order. I don't think that's the end of the world. There's definitely a lot more discussion about how to build products that work with the Apple Vision Pro and how to tweak it so you get the hand controls working correctly. And I wasn't seeing any of that discussion before. The whole idea that you can't just port something that existed for the Meta products because it's not a high enough resolution, or the controls need to get reworked.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll hear about it by developer conference. So we'll know by June, July.
Our next article is from 9 to 5 Mac, and this has been reported, I think, for a bit since January 6th. We haven't had a show since then, but this was about the best Plex video player for Apple Vision Pro. And have you tried Theater?
I haven't. I think I launched it once and I didn't go any further with it. But I had read this article, so I need to try it again. How about you?
It's a big public. It's a bunch of public information about this particular app, which is Theater for VisionOS. I bought it when it first came out, opened it up, and it seemed like it wanted my video source, which meant my Plex server. Now, I have the Plex server app. I used to have the complete collection of Columbos on it, and Perot's, and Hookup Perot's.
Wow.
And I, for the life of me, cannot find them. So I don't know if I took them off or I shut down my Plex server and then had to I cannot find them. Secondly, since then, I've gone into Apple TV and gone into iTunes or Apple Tunes or whatever you want to call it, and bought the complete collection of Hookup Perot. And I haven't done Columbo yet, but it's constantly streaming and running on live TV, on Cozy or whatever it is, that I haven't had the need for it. So when I open up my Plex server, it's completely blank and empty. And so I'm less thrilled about this because I wanted to show like my Apple TV content through it, or I wanted to show YouTube through it, or I wanted to show some other source through it. And once I hit that first thing that said, do you want to do this or do you want to do this? And I was like, well, let me see if I can hook it up, and then realize there was nothing there. Now, of course, Plex has their own catalog of movies that I wouldn't purchase anyways. And so I'm less than excited of being able to go watch a crappy movie through that's not at the resolution that I'd want it for anyways, through my Vision Pro headset. So, but this has gotten a lot of press. And I've said before on this show and other show, my favorite app for streaming is Lens. The only difficulty with that app is you have to log into all of your accounts and do that whole login process. And then once it's set up, it's a panel of links that you can just click on and watch whatever streaming service, a lot of streaming services that you want. So Vimeo, YouTube, things like that. Oh, and Gurn talks about, I view my Plex library on Vision Pro all the time with Moon Player screen lit, or the Plexi app, 4K on Vision Pro.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of Moon Player. That's been the easiest, either by sticking videos directly on the Vision Pro, or I've got a mini in the basement with a drive attached to it, and I just remote connect.
Yeah, I have too much content on Apple TV Plus that I want to see that I haven't seen yet, that I don't need another source for it at this point. So, interesting article. And then here's the one that I think caught a bit of controversy about. Tim Cook's habit can fix most of Vision Pro's biggest problems. Did you read this? Did you see this?
Yeah, I guess I'm not okay.
Buy a $3,500 device so you can lie down to watch it.
Now, I have to say that, I had like a week or two where I was stuck in one room and couldn't go anywhere. And, then I was like half lying down.
Mm-hmm.
And the Vision Pro is really nice for that. That was right when they first fixed it so that you could rearrange the windows. Because at that time, when I first started my week, you couldn't put a window on the ceiling because it would always drop it so that it was, 90 degrees off. It was lining up with the wall, not with the ceiling.
Yeah.
So I do have to say I'm really glad you can move the windows around now.
Yeah.
That has made a big difference. But for me, I find it more comfortable to be sitting up. So
yeah, so do I. And I don't have the weight problems. Maybe I have this elephant foot of a neck that it just doesn't cause me the kind of neck strain problems that people have with it. And I just don't want to be lying down. The kinetics of it, just as the body kinetics of it, just doesn't feel like I'd watch a movie that way in any other form. There's no opportunities for me to consume entertainment that way anyways. So trying to, quote, resolve the problem is, because Tim Cook says, yeah, I like to lay down and watch movies with it. Just doesn't seem.
Now, there is one place where that's helpful, and that is if you're mirroring your Vision Pro to an iPad, then lying down so your head isn't moving around. Keeps the person watching it, then you don't have the contents of the screen kind of all over the place. It slows it down a little bit.
Yeah, putting your head in a vice.
But it's better. Yeah.
Yeah, putting your head in a vice would do the same thing.
Yeah, put your head on.
But I get what you're saying.
You're all set.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. All right. So another article from 9 to 5 Mac, and this is about iOS 4, 18.4. Siri's powers get me really excited for Vision Pro's future. And it talks about, I guess we shouldn't be saying her proper name, so we're not triggering. Since mine is uses the Australian accent, because I kind of dig that. I call her Sheila, So they talk about, this article really talks about when the upgrades are happening and what it is in the iOS and when to expect, not necessarily when to expect the rollout, but what's in the rollout. And then the superpowers, new app actions. Sheila will be able to perform hundreds of new actions in Apple apps. Then the personal context knowledge, which I think is the branding that Apple should be talking about when they're talking about Apple Intelligence. That this is something that knows you, that given permission will be able to give you answers that fit within your context. And it'll be secure because it's either on device or it's in the Apple cloud. And it's not something that they're sending out to large servers in order to do it, unless you ask for ChatGPT. But that's the branding piece. And everybody who's taking a dump on Apple Intelligence just needs to wait, And I read an article, I think it was in Medium this morning, about someone who was like, let me do this article that'll get a lot of clickbait. And, the article was about, these are all the things that are wrong with Apple Intelligence. No. And it was kind of nice because the comments in that article, people stood up and said, hey, back off, buddy. First of all, this is how Apple typically does stuff. And secondly, they're doing it for a good reason. And you haven't seen it in a fully evolved. And compared to where the other folks are, you might think Apple's behind, but they're really ahead in terms of creating a personal context, secure personal assistant based on what your context is and what you need. So it's interesting in this article where they do bring that up, the personal context knowledge and then on-screen awareness. So Sheila will know what's on your display.
That'll be nice.
Yeah. And the person's making all of these leaps and starting off by saying, I'm a pretty new Vision Pro owner. Had the device less than a month. And talks about relying on Sheila with Vision Pro a lot more. So that article, again, a 9 to 5 Mac article, all of the articles will be in the show notes for whether in the video or in the podcast version of it. Just look for the links in the show notes. So, all right. This article I thought was just weird. And I'm going to try and expand it a little bit if I can. Yeah, I can. There we go. But the spinning chair, yeah, for those of us who are missing CES or have never been to CES, apparently you can put on a headset. And right now it works with Meta, but they're planning on porting it over for other VR experiences. And the title of the article is They Spun Me Around and I didn't feel like throwing up. It's an $800 swivel chair and head tracker moves as you look around in VR. What do you think? Any thoughts on this?
It seemed maybe a little excessive, but it could be, depending on what you're actually watching, that could be kind of neat. Game-wise, a little bit more feedback if you're trying to drive a tank or something. I have to say, just sitting in a chair that swivels, I find to be really useful, especially with things like the ultra-wide display. So having something that, moves you back and forth.
I've got the video up. I'm going to try and play a little of it. Maybe you can see the video. I don't know if you can hear the audio, but so this is the Roto VR Explorer, currently made for Meta. It's a made for Meta product. It's optimized for Quest, but they're looking at porting it to run in the Vive family and soon Apple Vision Pro. I don't know.
Well, Gurman says with the Flight app, it's a necessity. So.
Oh, okay. And Cletus joined us. Yay. Flood Ready also joined us in the chat. You can join us on Monday nights at 9 o'clock, youtube.com/@visionprofiles. And again, you'll see that link in any of the notes for it. And you can join in on the. And I will say it. I don't care. Gurn said, the quote, spin and barf chair. Yeah, that's my feeling about it. I have a Meta and I can't do anything more than comfortable games because if you get me to a moderate, the vertigo is going to go nuts. So, this article, I just love the title of it. Go home, Mark Zuckerberg. You're drunk. Did you read anything about this? I read it in the news. I think it was maybe in Reddit, or I think it was even like in Apple News.
Yeah, it showed up in a bunch of places. Yeah.
But it was basically everybody's reporting about his time on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. Okay, so we can just stop there. But I don't know why he decided to crap talk Apple so much.
It's what he does.
I know. And someone needs to tell him that product that he's trying to compare to Apple Vision Pro is a gaming device, not a productivity device. And they're trying to force that. There's some ways of making that happen, but it's not pretty. It's really not set up with that in mind. But he was really crap talking that I'm pretty certain that Apple is due to get knocked off the perch any day now. I'm pretty optimistic that just because they've been off their game so much in terms of not really releasing many innovative things that eventually, the good news is about the tech industry. It's it's just super dynamic and things are constantly getting invented. And I think he talks like a politician. And I think companies, if you don't do a good job, like for 10 years, you're eventually just going to get beat by someone. But, the big takeaway from this was what he said about Meta and Meta compared to Apple, where he said that we can create a device, something to the tune of our device is just as good and does everything that the Vision Pro does, but for only $400, whereas theirs is $3,500. Do people believe that crap?
Well, if if you can't manage to get one and you have to keep yourself happy with not getting one, then yeah.
And so he's really talking to his
Base?
tech followers, his base, in a sense. So he's feeding them stuff that they already believe, but's not accurate.
I just think it's funny that someone who has a product like Facebook talks about having the same product without really big changes is a bad thing. Oh, well.
Yeah. You know what is actually declining? Facebook. Yeah. Why is everybody running from your products, Mark? Threads is declining. They've had problems with their social media piece.
It's a nice distraction. Comes out and says something, and everybody focuses on that instead.
Yeah. Well, anyways, that's the latest from Mark Zuckerberg. Go home, you're drunk. So let's move into some of these apps. You found one that really surprised me. I immediately went and bought it. And it was like, okay, sight unseen, I'm going to buy this and I'm going to get this in my, and I'll see if it opens it in the Apple Store. I don't need that. So I'm going to just go to the screen and let you talk a little bit about it.
Vision Type Pro. Yeah, it was interesting. This was coming from a Reddit post mentioning it. And so I tried it, and basically it lets you use your phone as a source for text. And there's the app on the phone, app on the Vision Pro, and you can basically send text back and forth. I found it helpful because I'm constantly looking stuff up or links on my phone, and then I can't always manage to get it to copy and move over to the Apple Vision Pro correctly. And then I have to mail it to myself or AirDrop it or whatever. This is nice because you can rapidly move stuff back and forth. So if you've got a longer link or something more complicated to type, or something where you're trying to type with the on-screen keyboard and it just is not working, instead of having to go find a Bluetooth keyboard, you've got your phone, you type it, you send it, and it's fast, it's efficient. The only issue I ran into was once you connect to the Vision Pro from the phone, send the text. If you then switch out of that app into another app, like the one that has all the links you're trying to send, when you switch back, it seems to have lost the connection. You have to reconnect again. So that was annoying. But it did the functionality was there for what I was really looking for. So I was happy.
Yeah, I hate the Vision Pro on-screen keyboard. It's like, get out of my way. I just want to use Sheila if I can use Sheila. But there are some cases like passwords and stuff like that. I've got to figure out how to use that on screen. And frankly, if it's late at night and my contacts have been in all day, my connection is a little blurry. So my eye recognition is a little blurry with that too. So it's not as accurate. So the idea of having this on the phone, I think, is pretty cool. Typically, what I'll do is take stuff and throw it in notes. If there's a sufficient amount of text, if I'm working at a desktop, I'll throw it in notes, and then I'll open up notes in the Vision Pro app and grab it that way if I have to. But this looks cool. This looks very cool. All right. That is the Vision Type Pro. I had all sorts of problems trying to get that name straight, but use iPhone as a Vision keyboard. And they have screenshots on it. Not a lot of folks in there yet on this in terms of ratings. So
it's almost like a mini texting app between two devices.
Yeah. So you ready for the other one? And this, I think, was interesting. When I was looking for apps to talk about, I almost went to this one because I think we had a conversation about it, or somewhere I had heard about it, or I had somebody over I was doing a demo for. I had a doc student who he and I worked on a grant together. And with the grant, he taught the technology portion of the training that we were doing with the teachers that we were working with. But he hadn't had access to a Vision Pro. And so I said, come on over, Abdullahi, and I will give you. He would have asked to do that a year ago. I'm like, okay, yeah. But the combined ability of him knowing about VR because he has a MetaQuest. And he's like, you don't want to convince me to get a MetaQuest. Can't afford a Vision Pro. But the learning curve was so short with him. You know, when you're like basically, and I said, watch the video in the guest mode, which seemed like it went remarkably fast for him. And then he was off to the races. He was looking at all sorts of things. I had to suggest a few things to do when he got stuck, hit the crown. Yeah. But he told me, he said, what is this Art Authority Museum? And I'm like, I don't know. So I was tempted about it. Tell me what you know about it.
I can't remember how I originally came across it. A while ago, I was just looking at a way that you could walk in a museum, walk through, and then look at a bunch of artwork as if you were in a museum. And it does that pretty well. It has different rooms. So you can go for, like American artwork. You can go for, different time periods. And then it's a room with all of that artwork. In the case where there's artwork in one room that's related to another room, there'll be a link where you can say, go look at the related artwork, and it can bounce you between the rooms. But I wanted a way to go walk through a museum, get that effect without actually walking through a museum or driving to go find parking and walk through a museum. So it gave me that. Ouch. The image quality is pretty good. There's labels next to every single picture. You can take as much time as you want. There are no crowds. No one's telling you to get out because it's the end of the day and you took too long to get there and now you must go home.
Yeah. Here's the ouch part for me. Am I going to be willing to pay $4.99 a month for monthly membership, or am I willing to pay $49.99? Is it an app that I'm willing to spend $50 on for a year and then forget using it, or forget that I'm paying a membership for it?
They did a nice job, but I guess if you hadn't used it up until this point, pay the $5 as an entry fee and cancel it right away. You get the month. Use it, wander around, and then the next time you have a bunch of time, pay it again.
So you're basically saying binge watch the art.
Yeah. And if you find that you're doing it a lot, you get a lot of value at it, then go for the year. But, I found, maybe 3 or 4 times a year.
Yeah.
I go in and wander around. That's not enough to be worth it for the yearly.
So Cletus has a question in the chat. What's the quality of the artwork in the Apple Vision Pro?
That is an excellent question. It's okay. I like it because I was looking in textbooks and the quality is better than looking at a textbook. If you're talking about wanting to walk up and look at the texture of all of the paintings and see, all detail at that level, I wasn't seeing that in the pictures I was looking at. So there's a difference between seeing it in person. But it could be the pictures I was looking at, they didn't have at that quality, and there's some, I don't know if there are other options.
Yeah, I've got to wonder about rights with this, because I can't just kind of walk into a museum and take a picture of the Last Supper and then start using it. So I'm not that I think anything fishy's going on. It's just, think of that. I mean, think of the permissions that you'd have to get to use artwork, unless it was somehow in the public domain. And in that case, you're really being your museum is restricted, particularly if you're doing a virtual museum and I can't make it to, I don't know, where's the Last Supper hanging? I can't make, let's say, Paris. Well, anybody in the chat room know where the Last Supper is hanging? Put it in the chat room or do a quick search for it. But say I can't, just jet set over there to look at that piece of art. And if I did, what's my access to photography? And once I have the photograph, what's my freedom of using that in terms of copyright?
Yeah. And I guess the other way to think of it is you're not usually, unless you're looking for style, you're not usually walking up to within a couple inches of a painting and looking at the brush strokes and how the paint is set down.
Yeah.
Well, some people are, but I'm not usually. Usually I'm looking at it away from the painting, and it's fine for that. If you're standing the distance you would normally stand from the painting, so you get the view as if you are standing, in a museum looking at it.
Well, winner, winner, chicken dinner. Flood already came through with Basilica di Santa Maria delle Grazie, and it's in Milan, Italy. Milan,
Italy.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for doing that, chat room. I'm not going to say I'm never going to Milan, but I wouldn't have thought Milan for that piece of artwork, which is pretty cool. Okay, let's do the last one. And the last one is just I started searching for new apps and saw this one, and it just kind of fascinated me. Ahoy from Picardy. And the subtitle there is an invitation to start again. It's a $5.99 purchase. And so I went ahead and purchased it because I was trying to figure out, what is this? Is this a game, or is this just a storyline? And I think the thing that got me to purchase it was I was looking at some of the images, and I think they might even have a video of it that you can play in your VisionPro, in the VisionPro App Store. And it reminded me a lot of an app I talked about, an entertainment piece I talked about a couple of shows ago called Otto's Planet, which is this three-dimensional rock that hangs in your space, and you can move it and spin it, but there's a storyline that goes on when somebody else lands on the planet, and they have to work together. And so there's a story theme there. There's some actions that you do. This is similar in that. From what I've spent. I spent about 10 or 15 minutes with it. I struggled with trying to stop it and go back to it without having to restart the whole show. But it is really pretty cool. You basically get what you're seeing here in the middle of the screen, this kind of island. The story is this family owned this island for a long period of time, and the grandmother was losing health, so she had to be taken off the island. And the island had these remarkable trees in them. Eric, you might like this too, the storyline. Had this remarkable trees in them, but there was such a drought that the trees, basically withered. However, the grandson brought like seeds with him from the trees with the intent of returning to the island and trying to repopulate it with trees. The problem was there was not enough rain, and the rain was an issue. So the storyline kind of goes into, he meets a young scientist girl. I mean, this happens all within the first couple of minutes, so I'm not ruining it for you. Meets a young scientist girl, and there's a little bit of love there, and so she kind of haunts him, in his heart. But she knows how to make rain. She has a device that will, put smoke into the clouds, and then supposedly it'll rain. So, that's about as far as I got. He's on the island. There is a narrator, which is sort of like the computer that he works with, and he communicates back with the computer. So there's a soundtrack for it. There's music that kind of tells the storyline, You've got to get used to that. But so far it's asked me to do a couple of things. So it's not a passive kind of experience with it. So it's fun. It's gotten some wonderful ratings. Again, the visual and the experience of doing it, and just the kind of three-dimensional aspect of the whole thing is really pretty cool. Just for that. If you don't like the troubadour that's singing the story, or you don't like the romantic part of the story, that's okay. It still is just visually beautiful to look at. So yeah, you can jump into different portions of the story. I'm panning through some of the pictures here for our audio listeners. But it's called Ahoy from Picardy. And Picardy, I think, is the island name. An invitation to start again. And I think that's what the grandson is trying to do, start the island again. So
sounds like fun.
Nicely done. Has this guy done anything else? No? Well, at least not listed here. It's by Daniel Jones. So So let's go back, and I think we are about done for tonight. I was going to talk about Crackgate. There's been a lot of things popping up about Crackgate, and it's still kind of present. Do you know anybody who's had that experience, Eric?
No, I mean, there were a lot of theories. Like, there are a lot of people that won't leave their device plugged in the marshmallow case all sealed up. Um, I have to admit to doing that a lot. And so far, it's been okay. My guess is that maybe the initial run of devices, they hadn't quite gotten all the bending down, because almost everyone had the problem, seems to have either had a device that was from that first day or first week, or they purchased a used one. And I didn't get mine until quite a bit later. So, but I have no idea.
I'm running scared then because I got a first day of issue, but and I check it regularly, haven't seen any problem with it. It hasn't occurred to me. Now, I treat this thing pretty gently, and I certainly don't keep it plugged in and overheating and things like that for those potential, the rumored aspects of why it's going bad.
And it goes back and forth with me to work every single day. So now that marshmallow case is pretty protective.
Yeah. I'm just hearing more stories about it, and actually hearing positive outcomes that Apple, even though people think it's out of warranty or they don't have the protection on it, that whether it's in warranty or out of warranty, go ahead and submit it, because they're able to quickly identify if this is whatever the structural problem is, and apparently take care of it, and often gratis for free. But yeah, I've just been reading more about people having to deal with that. It seemed to peak for a while and then go away, and now it seems to be back up again. So,
and it could be that people are using their devices more, and so they're noticing. And they used them early on, and then there's a break, and they came back and used them. And
it's sort of, if you're paying attention, you're going to see it more often. From the chat room. Well, first of all, the Basilica di Santa Maria del Grazie in Milan, Italian. I can't say it.
Italy?
Thank you. That's why we have co-hosts. It's a convent, so there's no way I'm getting in there. I guess, I don't know. But Gurn says that the Crackgate hasn't hit him yet. And
it's good.
He got his in July, so we'll keep an eye out for it and see if there's any other things like that. Thanks to all the folks in the chat room tonight and for their conversation and their skills in finding out where artwork is hanging in the world, and the conversation that's been going back and forth between them about streaming and Wi-Fi and stuff. You can join that by joining us live on YouTube on Monday nights at 9 p.m. youtube.com/the Vision Profiles will get you to our channel, and you can join other folks in here like Gurn and Gary and Flood Ready and Cletus.
Yes.
We've got a good group of folks in there that have been supportive of the show, and we appreciate that. Follow us a live stream, like I said, on YouTube, or you can pick up the audio at the YouTube site, and also any of your audio servers or podcast servers. You'll be able to find us, Vision Profiles. You can contact the show if you like. Just email us. Go to our website. Our email is visionprofilspodcast@gmail.com. But our website for this show and all the other shows that I'm engaged in is thepodtalk.net. That's all one word, thepodtalk.net. And so you can find out about myself and Eric and other hosts and other shows that we do on the podtalk.network, including things like Tech Savvy Professor. I'm doing one with my son now called Gear Up and Go, which is about travel gear and apps and wear and planning, which is kind of fun. It's fun to do it with your son, because Eric and I haven't had a lifelong relationship, but my son and I have. And so it's weird because he knows all of my little weird habits about travel. And off to the left of me is what I refer to as Fibber McGee's closet, which is where he knows it. It's where all of my old tech is thrown in case I ever need it again. So check out thepodtalk.net and you'll get connections to the other shows that we're doing. Eric, anything final to say?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Spread the word to other visionaries. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.